Hey friends, so this is Drex and this is Profiles in Flow, my monthly feature where I interview really interesting and awesome people in the world of flow and find out how they do the amazing and interesting things that they do. It is New Year's Day as I'm having this interview with my third guest now, Mary Spohn. You might know, or Mary Spawn, excuse me. You might know her better as Blitzen. She is one of the best known glovers in the world, and I got the chance to meet her about, what was it, like a year and some change ago at IGC, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she is my wonderful guest for this month, and I can't wait to do a deep dive. I know this one's a little off the beaten path, and I'm excited to see what comes out of that. So, Mary, hi, thanks for spending your New Year's Day with me.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me, Ben. I'm excited to do this interview.
Excellent. I'm excited to do it too. So this one's going to be really interesting for me because I don't know if you've seen the other two interviews that I've done, but they've been with people who more or less I know a lot about kind of how their careers have worked and everything. But the gloving community, I'll confess, is still something that's a little bit opaque to me. So you're going to probably have to spend a not small portion of this interview kind of educating me about the gloving world and how it has interacted with your career, if you don't mind catching me up.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem at all.
Cool, cool. So let's start it off then by just kind of asking you the basics. How did you get into gloving? When did it happen? And what pulled you in?
So I first started gloving in 2009. I didn't really take it seriously, though, till 2010. And I didn't really make a name for myself until the end of 2010, the beginning of 2011. And I originally did a lot of freehanding with glow sticks because that was really popular in the SoCal area, in the rave community. And then my friends started picking up gloving and talking about it and, trying it out at festivals and events as well. And I ordered my first pair, and then the rest was history. Right on.
So how long before that does gloving become a thing? Do you know, like, do you know when it kind of emerges as its own art?
I want to say around 2007.
Okay.
The first person to actually glove, his name was Hermes, and he is kind of known as the creator, I guess, or the point that we can designate as the start of gloving.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just continually, developed as well with the technology of the micro lights and glove sets. And, you can kind of see how that's progressed over the years from the really big, kind of heavy and uncomfortable lights that we used to wear in our gloves to now, more form-fitting, lighter gloves that we use.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so take me back to, you said it was like 2009, 2010 when you started up, right?
Yes.
Cool. So what does the gloving community look like back then? Like, how many of you are there in the LA area? Where do you go to? What do you do?
So they're mostly, we met on the online scene on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't anything like some of the big Facebook groups that we have now, or, any of those communities at all. Also at festivals, at some of the bigger festivals that are now, EDC, for example, was in for Long Island until it got moved to Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. But so we would meet at big festivals, and that was kind of how things started to circulate because it was a pretty small community. And also outside of that, Emazing Lights was hosting an event called Thursday Night Lights and Friday Night Lights, mm-hmm. which was basically an evening where glovers could come together in their shop, essentially, and there was a live DJ, and we would all trade light shows, with mm-hmm. each other. And that was, it was a small enough community where it was the same group of people that would come each week. And, that was basically how they're doing.
Okay. So, were you a part of that crew that was coming together at Emazing Lights every week, or were you kind of like off in a separate world and discovered about them after the fact?
Yes. So my kind of discovery process was a little backwards than most Glovers. I didn't really go to Thursday night events, and I wasn't really in with that group of Glovers. It wasn't something that kind of gradually had happened for me. I went to Ultra Miami in 2011, and I went there with a friend. And I had never met any other Glovers really. I just it was something that I practiced on my own. I recorded my own shows in my bedroom, posted them on YouTube. And when I was there, I ran into all of the Emazing Lights crew. They had basically sent out a group of Glovers to represent the company as well as the art form itself, and meet with people, give light shows. And I had met a lot of my inspirations there that evening. They were just all in one place, which was kind of crazy for me. And when I went and gave them a light show and I introduced myself, they were first thing that they were very surprised about was that, not only that I was a female Glover, because there were not a lot of female Glovers at the time, but also that I was from the SoCal area. But we all kind of met in Florida, which was the funny part of it. And the next week they told me to come back and film a light show in the Emazing. There was like a little studio that we had. And so the following week when I came back from LA, I went and filmed. And then that video ended up going viral. And that was the first video I had filmed for them. And from that point, they asked me if I wanted to take on a sponsorship with them. And I hadn't even really, been gloving that long. So it was just, everything kind of like happened really fast for me in that sense, in terms of my involvement with the community. And then that's how I really started to, meet everyone and, involve myself more with the in-person events that we had in the SoCal area.
Sure. So I sent you a list of the questions that I was going to be looking at ahead of time, and I'm going to jump around a little bit on that list, because one of the things that you talked about in there I'm really curious about, which is, at least in the poi world, from what I've been able to put together, it was very, very heavily female for like many, many, many years, and then it kind of like switched over its balance to being very heavily male. And we've definitely there have been kind of some issues in the online community that have come with that, some kind of like very aggressive tendencies and everything. So do you feel like the gloving community was very welcoming to women when you came into it, or do you think that in some ways you kind of like, pushed open whatever glass ceiling there might exist at the time? Because one of the things I really enjoyed seeing at IGC was the number of female glovers out there and how like integrated into the community that they are.
Yeah, it's, and I always try to remind, fellow glovers of this as well, and a lot of newbies, that it was so different for girls when I started. And not to say that it wasn't a welcoming environment, but I could see how someone could, another woman could be discouraged from wanting to glove just because there wasn't a lot of females who did glove to begin with. So I think, and there, as you said, with some of the issues in the online community with females, that does hold true a little bit with the gloving community as well. But I think that, a lot of the women that glove and, we've created our own kind of little safe havens and are really supportive of each other, and I think it's become a really positive environment than, what it used to be.
That's good to hear. How is it for you? Because I imagine there are, young women glovers who come up to you who tell you that, they're the reason that, they got into this, and you were the person that showed them that they could really shine on and everything. How does it feel to hear that?
You know, it's always a humbling experience when someone comes up to me. Just last night, actually, when I was out at when I was at Universal Studios, someone pulled me aside, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're that girl in gloves on YouTube?" And I was like, "Yes."
Awesome.
I was like, "I am." But you know, it's always just it's really, it makes me happy that if I do leave anything behind with the community, you know, that I can inspire either, you know, men and women to
totally
continue to glow that this is a safe place where they can express themselves regardless of, you know, their gender, sexuality, you know, passions, personalities, looks, you know, whatever.
Yeah. No, and that's a really, really good thing to have. Kudos to you for breaking that ground.
Yeah, thank you. Of
course. I'm going to try and get us a little bit back on track here, or at least back on the outline that I sent you. You talked a little bit about kind of getting sponsored after you had gone and visited Emazing Lights and done a video for them that had gone viral and everything. How did you start to kind of build your online presence after that? How did you, because clearly right now, I will tell you that, you know, a couple years ago when Emazing Lights released their EPOI, I got an email out of the blue from Brian Lim, and I had been very much under the radar for that entire kind of deal up until then. And I spent like probably a good day doing as much research as I could into the gloving community and Emazing Lights specifically. And you came up quite a lot as I was doing that research. So number one, awesome for building up such a comprehensive online presence. How did you do it?
Well, it's taken many years. And it's taken also just a really, you know, learning and trying to understand how, you know, branding works and how to be consistent with that, and and also understanding what a lot of my followers and fans, what they want to see from my light shows. And it, you know, I would really be very meticulous with things that I chose down to, you know, songs and what I was wearing to, you know, to try and just be consistent. And that, you know, and once I kind of figured out what the people that, you know, watched me and really, you know, identified with me, what they wanted to see, I kind of just stuck with that. And it was, you know, it aligned with, you know, what I was also comfortable with. And it really showed too, when, you know, when I did videos or something that just was kind of like uncomfortable for me, or it just didn't really feel natural or like me, you know, people didn't really respond well to it. And it didn't really feel like me at the same time. So I've always tried to keep, you know, a very honest, just, you know, true version of myself, you know, and trying to interact with fans and followers always. Now it's become a little bit more difficult, but, you know, just when I was getting started, you know, constantly responding to any comments, messages, you know, trying to help people. I was filming tutorials as well. And I think that was a huge part of what also spread my brand and my name out there, because a lot of my old tutorials are what people first come across when you look up how to glove. You know, there's a couple other glovers, myself included, and those are some of the first videos that people, you know, might watch if they go the YouTube.
Oh, I think I might have lost you.
Tutorials.
Oh, there we go.
You know, did it come back?
Yeah, I got you back again.
Yeah, I tried to just you know, from there, just to make everything, you know, make everything.
Oh, I think I lost you again. Oh, and I think I know why. Hang on, this might break the connection. Let's see if it does. Keep your fingers crossed. Yee. And
hello?
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Oh wow. Okay, so it turned out the problem the whole time was on my end. Cool. Anyhow, sorry. So you were talking. You got broken up in the middle of talking about YouTube tutorials.
Oh no.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was on the wrong Wi-Fi network this whole time. My bad.
But yeah, I agreed to. I actually, a lot of the really old tutorials that Emazing has up on their YouTube, like these are some of the ones that were made in like 2010, 2012. I wrote a lot of the outlines for those.
Nice.
And then when I wrote the outlines for those, they were like, well, you want to film a couple of them? And I said, oh yeah, I don't know, maybe. And then I decided, yeah, I'd film some of the finger roll tutorials, which is one of the first concepts that you kind of learn as a glover. And it ended up probably being one of the most difficult videos I've ever filmed, probably. I was for like almost 8 to 10 hours the whole day with our camera guy, trying to like figure, how to take something that's one of the easiest concepts and how to make it, even simpler, without any context for someone. But in those videos, people still watch those videos. I think that's probably the most common thing that people say to me when they meet me. They go, I learned how to do this from you, and it's always like, finger roll or a certain type of whip concept, and so that's how I've developed those have really helped in, kind of building a name for myself. Sure.
So, there was so much that you said in that answer that I would love to unpack. So let's go back piece by piece here, yeah? So one of the first things I want to look at more in depth is when you were talking about kind of evaluating what your audience wants to see and what you want to show them and everything. Can you give me an example of some of the work that you did to try and figure out what your audience wanted to see? Like, I had this video and I realized that this, and this in it were things that my audience wanted to see, and these things were not things that they wanted to see. How do you figure that out, number one, and how do you generate more content based upon that?
Yeah, great question. So I think at the first, it started with really simple things, actually, and it was one time, like, for example, like I remember the very first video I filmed, I was wearing a hat, and then for the next couple, I was wearing a hat, and then there was one video where I didn't wear a hat, and everyone was in the comments just commenting on how I didn't wear a hat, and I was like, that's so weird, I was like, why do people care so much? Why is it, but I kind of took that little idea, and I was like, okay, this is kind of what people, are knowing me for. I said, I wonder how I can apply that to what I'm doing in my shows, Right. And there are a lot of my videos where I've been very, I started getting like very interactive with the camera as well, and when I started getting more comfortable with it, I noticed people started responding to that, and I was trying to, just trying different things, and they were simple things, but they were things that were very characteristic to stuff that I would do in my shows, and then when I tried something else, that wasn't as, I remember I did another video where I was wearing a mask and I had my face covered, and no one liked that video because they couldn't see my face. Yeah. They couldn't see they couldn't see my expressions, and so I was, it was a lot of trial and error. Yeah. And songs also played a huge part as well in that, in that expressiveness that I have with my videos. If I picked songs that didn't have like vocals or, some type of really kind of emotional melodic line people, it didn't really go well with my gloving style, and I could just tell from, the comments and just how the videos circulated that people didn't respond well to it.
Sure.
It was mostly just trial and error,
Yeah.
That was a big part of it.
Okay, so looking at the other side of that then now, because it's really, really easy to go down that road where you say, okay, these videos got all of the likes, I just need to keep on doing this stuff and this stuff and this stuff. But number one, you tend to get bored as a content creator if you just keep rehashing the same thing over and over again. And number two, there's sometimes you try things out and you kind of realize it's like, this doesn't feel like it fits for me very well, whether it's something that doesn't feel authentic to who you are as a person, or something that you just realize was one of those kind of one and done things that you're like, this was fun, but I want to go back to this other thing that I was doing before. How do you find a way to be authentic with your audience and still provide them with what they want to see from you?
So I think one of the ways that you can really just, continue, to explore new stuff as a content creator, and be authentic is by slowly introducing things to your followers. Because if you hit them all with one thing really fast, it feels forced. It feels like you're trying to sell something to them that's not you. And people pick up on that really quickly. So, I would have I would think of an idea that I wanted to do, or something that I, eventually wanted to shoot, or a move that I wanted to try. And, I wouldn't all of a sudden just, do it and just force it all in one video, but I would kind of hint at it a little bit and start to explore the concept. And then I would just slowly kind of move it into my routine to the point where no one ever really felt like I was just trying to force something on them, or it was feeling like I wasn't being authentic. And I can give you an example for that. So I, probably 3 years ago, I started, gloving had always been known for just using your hands and arms as well. I started kind of introducing some full body movements with gloving. When I first tried it, I just, was using basically just torso up. So I was using my shoulders, my head, I wasn't using my legs. And I was slowly kind of integrating that, that by the time I put out a video where I was, somewhat dancing as well as gloving at the same time, no one felt like I was really trying to push something on them that just seemed fake, or like I was trying to just get a bunch of views, or doing something that I hadn't practiced also. Right. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. No, and that's really interesting to hear, because it sounds like there's kind of like a high level strategy there in terms of, I want to take my audience from point A to point B, and it's just not a matter of I show them point B. It's that there's several things to get to in order to get them to point B.
Yeah, and also just as a content creator, I've learned that you can't focus on too many things all at once. Yeah. You can't have 85 different things that you want to cover, because it's just too much, and it's confusing for viewers as well, and it kind of takes away from who you are. And so you have to, if you want to bring something else into the picture, you have to slowly kind of shift it in without really losing anyone on that transition.
That totally makes sense. So if you could give me your top 3 best practices for content creators, and your top 3 things that you wish you had known before you got into creating content yourself.
So I think the first one is always create high quality content. And even if that takes a little bit more time. don't just, you know, if you don't really like something and you're like, I don't really know, but, you know, someone else might enjoy it, then I wouldn't bother even using that, because if you don't like it, then people most likely are not gonna like it as well. You know, so if it requires maybe, you know, taking a week or a month to kind of, you know, make sure that something, you know, looks good or, you know, feels good and you're doing it, then, you know, it's going to be worth it, versus something that feels rushed and just not, you know, it shows. And then with that, on the other hand of that, trying to, you know, be consistent is another big one that I wish I knew
totally
earlier on, because, you know, there were times where I kind of just fell off the train for a couple months, 3 months, 4 months, and then when I tried to get back into it, it's like I had to regain all this momentum, you know.
Yeah.
And this was a little bit earlier on, and some of the, you know, social media platforms and just all the sharing functions that we have now and just how accessible everything is. It wasn't the same really, even that short amount of time ago. But I, you know, I think that's a big one, being consistent.
Yeah.
And then the third one is, you know, make sure that you're always doing something that's interesting to you as well, you know, and something that you enjoy. Because, you know, if you're not enjoying it, it's, you know, you don't want to ever force anything. Again, I think that's like my biggest, you know, just forcing things. It shows, you know, and people are very sensitive to that nowadays. Totally. And I've learned that with some of my followers, that if I, you know, try and push something, it's like, you know, they feel it, I feel it, you know.
Yeah. So I kind of want to unpack one of those things just a little bit more. The consistency thing really, really resonates with me, because I mean, I feel like I have built my own career more or less on consistency. That, you know, I have produced a video a week on YouTube for the last like 9 or 10 years at this point. And right from the beginning, it was very clear to me that I would be able to grow an audience simply by making sure that people knew that they could always get a new video from me every week. But the devil's always in the details on doing that. And there have frequently been times when I found myself, you know, up against the clock and being like, oh my God, I've got to get a video up within the next 24 hours. How in God's name am I going to do that? And there's been so many workflow strategies I've had to develop over the years to keep myself from getting there. How do you maintain your consistency?
You know, just as simple as one thing that I've tried recently is I've actually taken a huge sheet of, you know, basically almost like a whiteboard. And I just write down every idea I have for a video, anything, you know, just even if it's something that's like totally ridiculous and would, you know, might not happen, or, you know, I don't know, just anything. And, you know, seeing what I can gather from that. And, you know, and you'd be surprised how many things that once you know, kind of look at that idea and you're like, wow, that's kind of totally ridiculous. But I think I could find a way to make that work. And like, I could do it, you know, in a way that kind of fits my style as well, and that people might enjoy.
Totally.
And also, you know, trying to mix it up, filming in different locations as well. You know, I think one of the biggest issues we have right now as a gloving community is there's just too many bedroom light shows. Just, you know, kind of filming in their rooms.
Yep.
You just see you know, you're just seeing the inside of someone's room or their kitchen for over a year. You know what I mean? But it's,
it's a problem in the poi world too.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to tell people, like, you know, maybe try and go and glove, you know, outside, or, you know, give your viewers a break of something other than your messy room. You know? Totally.
No, because that can make a big difference between something feeling like it is, you know, somebody who's kind of on the ground floor of developing their style and developing their online persona versus somebody who's all like, I want this thing that my audience watches to be something that's fun for them on every level.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I'm totally guilty of that as well. Like, I've fallen into that habit occasionally where it was just like, because it's just so easy. I just set my camera up and then I can be in my room and I can just sit down and film in front of it. But I notice how people eventually, one is okay every once in a while, and then it's just like, okay, like, all right, maybe, film somewhere else.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And I mean, that becomes a thing too, even if you film outside, is that like eventually the background becomes homogenous for your audience, and you've got to find either like stick the camera in a different spot when you're outside or find a different place to record, because, the audience gets tired of it eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And right now I've kind of been exploring. I've been reaching out to some glovers that I've always have spent a lot of time with and hung out with, but I've never actually done videos with them or anything. So
sure.
That's something that I've been exploring recently, and a lot of people have been really excited to see some of the collaboration videos I've done.
Good.
I'm excited to do more of them in the future.
Cool. All right, I'm going to totally veer us way back to something that we got into a while ago. Sorry. Because I'm sure that you and I could talk shop about making content pretty much for an entire hour, because it gets really intricate and there's some places deep in the weeds that we could probably go visit. But I also want this thing to be useful for not just people who want to create content, but people who want to create goals for their careers in gloving or other flow arts. So you had mentioned a while back that you had gotten sponsored by Emazing and done a couple viral videos, and you created these tutorials so people were finding you online and everything. And now you're at a point where, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're one of the more recognizable names in the gloving community, and you have been flown abroad to shoot commercials and do all kinds of fun stuff like that. How exactly did you go from having a viral video to having this gloving career that's blowing up like this?
So would you mind repeating?
Oh, I lost you again.
I'm trying to think of what you said. Right, it was.
So.
Sure. The last part, how my career is kind of blown up.
Yeah. So okay, how about let's break it into increments. After you got sponsored by Emazing and started creating tutorials for them and went viral, what was the next step for you? Because both you and I know that a video going viral does not necessarily mean money in the bank.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I've learned that viral videos really only do so much, and it's, you want to create, and while that, it can help, bring people, to your to your pages or to you, and see your art, you want to create long lasting fans and followers, because that's what translates into, into monetizing it, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I was actually able to, when I was at IGC in, I think, 2015, I did an interview with BBC World News, and that really kind of put me on, it also helped me legitimize myself, for me, and take what I was doing seriously and want to monetize it.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was, I decided that, I had to take it a little bit more seriously as if it was a business. And, from that point, I was reading up a lot, because I've also, one of my biggest passions as well and goals is I want to pursue my career as an actress as well.
Yeah.
And that has really, the gloving has really paired with that, because it's gotten me in front of casting directors and gotten me opportunities to shoot commercials and stuff like that. But, but without continuing to really just reinforce all of the, reinforce all the work I've done, with, the consistent videos and everything else that I've done. I wouldn't have had those opportunities.
Sure.
So that's what really, once I took everything a little bit more, seriously, and I, created my own website and stuff like that, that's what really took me to the next level. Because as, when I was taking myself seriously, then other people would take me seriously and take, gloving seriously as well, and one of the biggest things I think is that, any success that any glover, has had in the, kind of integrating it with, I wouldn't so much say the mainstream, but with, just the rest of, the world, it's a win for the whole community, because it's, showing people, what the community has to offer and how, just how beautiful the art form is itself.
Totally. So one of those ways that flow artists like poi spinners tend to this is a terrible way of phrasing it, and I hope those out there who are watching and listening will forgive me for it, but to kind of cash in is to do performances. Poi is one of those things that is really, really well suited for large outdoor stages because it's visible from quite a ways away, whereas I get the impression that gloving is a lot more suited to on-camera work. It's something that is kind of more geared for a small and intimate space and everything. Do you find that as a glover, do you find a lot of performance opportunities, or do you just have to be a lot more choosy about those performance opportunities that you seek out because of that?
So the performance opportunities I've only ever really, in terms of like a big performance, was one that I did at IGC, and that was a bunch of other glovers. Mm-hmm. And other than, competitions where there's a bunch of people kind of, gathering around, there aren't really big performance opportunities like that. But, I have ideas and thoughts of how we can expand past that and expand past it just being in front of a camera lens,
Sure.
But with that being said, I've had to really work on, like, for some of the other, commercial opportunities I've gotten, I did have to kind of up my other skills in terms of, the having some acting, skills and knowledge and on-camera knowledge as well played
Sure.
a big role in it, because it isn't taking up a huge space. So you have to be able to keep people, according to what, a lot of these, I guess just keeping people engaged, you would have to find other things other than just the gloving itself to keep people interested. Sure. And, make them want to seek you out and use you to promote either, their product or their song or whatever it is. You have to have another selling point, I guess, and I've kind of learned how to sell myself in that sense where it, it is enticing that it's like, I can glove, but I can also do, these other things that could, might be useful to what they're trying to create or what they might, have in mind for me.
Totally. So on that topic then, if you were to give glovers out there getting started one tip on-camera stuff that they should be doing that is completely unrelated to their gloving skills, what would it be?
I guess just learn, be comfortable in front of a camera, mm-hmm. And everyone has their own goal. Some people, they really just want to pursue the competitive aspect of gloving. Others, they really just enjoy learning and having it be just a hobby and skill that they have. But if you really want to take it to the next level, just being, I guess, comfortable with yourself in front of a camera, mm-hmm. and really just learning how to make it a performance instead of just a light show.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And that is a thing that we talk about among poi spinners a lot too, is there are tons of people who think it's all about showing the 5 hardest tricks that you possibly can. And
yeah.
You actually have to give your audience something more to glom onto than that, especially if they're people that know nothing about either, poi spinning or gloving. Cool.
Yeah, and I think that has, that's also really helped me too in building a following, that I tried to always keep those people that had never seen gloving before in mind in my audience. I always tried to keep, at some point I'm thinking, okay, if a non-glover sees this, the person who has no idea what gloving is,
yep.
How are they going to connect to what I'm creating?
Totally.
Or are they just going to be like, I don't know what this is? But my goal is always to keep them in mind and, connect with them as well. Whether they connect with me and just being like, hey, she just looks like a really nice person. I just like her, I just like her energy, and I don't really know what gloving is, but it's fun to watch, then that's, then yeah, that's, you just created another person that wants to, not only want to follow me, but might have another look into the gloving community.
Sure. So I am curious now too, because I don't know if you saw this or not, but I recently did a blog entry, kind of detailing how I, as a professional flow artist, make my income in that regard. And we've talked a little bit about monetizing one's audience and everything. And if you're not comfortable with doing it, it's totally fine. But I was curious, what are some ways that you've found to monetize the audience that you built?
Well, I do, there's a couple different ways. I do make a monthly income from my affiliate sales with Emazing Lights. And I did watch your video. So,
awesome.
Yeah, I know exactly. But that's one way, and it's always been just, and it was never really, it's not anything. It's not a crazy amount of money that I'm getting through affiliate sales, but it is something to, it is a money that I always like to put back into my projects.
Sure. And just real quick to assume that whoever's watching this has no idea what it is we're talking about. Can you describe right quick what affiliate sales are?
Sure. So, affiliate sales are essentially what well, if we're using, I guess we're using Emazing Lights as an example, if a brand or a company wants to promote their product, they have representatives essentially take on a coupon code that they make at their own desire. And anyone who's purchasing a product from, that website or whatever, they get a discount. And then, as the representative, you get a percentage of that sale. So everyone's benefiting from it. Someone's getting a discount, the representative would be getting some money, and then the company itself is obviously making that sale.
Totally.
So there's, it is a very small percentage. So yes, there's only so much that can, well, for me, and there are some other people that have made, a lot of money off of affiliate sales. That for me, that's not a huge focus, and it's always been kind of consistent for me. And I'm very grateful for anyone who's, used my code as well in the past, but that's not a huge focus for me. Also because I've learned that my audience is and most people don't like that. They don't want to feel like they're being sold to, and so I always just say, if you want to use my code, I'm very grateful for that. And that's my, but I don't want to push it, force people or feel like that's my only selling point.
Right, totally.
But I've also created merchandise as well, with my own brand. My Blitzen, Get Blitzed is the name of my merchandise.
Nice.
And so I've been selling, and it's been fun for me kind of designing some clothes and hats and stuff like that to sell. And then where I've made the most money though is with shooting commercials and advertisements, as well as doing promotional videos for brands that I would shoot on my own, I guess. And those ones are a little bit lower budget if I'm going to be shooting it and editing it myself.
So like a sponsored video then?
Yeah, like a sponsored video. You know, and those ones you can, you know, there could be multiple benefits. You could, there's been a couple times where I've taken a little bit less money, you know, for return of them, you know, sharing my video on their page, which has given me a lot of return in terms of following, which I know is going to, in the long run, help me out more.
Sure.
You know, and then the other ones, the bigger ones that I've done with, you know, like an actual agency that I'm signed with, you know, those are bigger, you know, negotiated deals as well.
Cool. So you actually have then an agent whose job it is to like find you opportunities like this and connect you with them.
I do. I have an agent and a manager. My manager is mostly, you know, he just mostly is helping me with my acting career, you know, and he does help with some of the gloving stuff. But my commercial agent, he does help me with a lot of the gloving and some other dance opportunities that have come up occasionally. You know, and because sometimes people don't really know what they want in those in some of those casting calls, you know. You know, they say they might want a break dancer, and then the next thing you know that they've, you know, completely changed it to, you know, we want a ballet dancer, you know. So it's a very, yeah, it's, you know, it's one of those processes and one of those things where you just have to appreciate the opportunities that come towards you, you know, and not take anything personally.
Sure.
About the outcome.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool.
Yeah.
So we're entering into the home stretch here. So I'm going to start asking you some of the more kind of like philosophical questions on the list and everything. Starting with this. So, you know, clearly this is an interview that's going to appear on my YouTube and SoundCloud and everything. And, you know, my bread and butter is flow arts. Do you think that gloving is a flow art? And if so, why?
I do think gloving is a flow art, and I think that also, interestingly enough, through this conversation, we've discussed that it has a lot of the, you know, similar issues as other flow arts, the things that we're trying to overcome, right? But you know, I think it is, and you know, it's a little younger than some of the other flow arts that are out there, and it still has some, you know, room to grow. But I think it is because, you know, we're really working on trying to also, you know, nail down some of just like vocabulary and like the moves and stuff like that, and making things, you know, definitive and not so just kind of like everything was just kind of go with the flow. Back in like 2008, you know, it was just its own little, you know, nothing was definitive at that point. But but those people back then, they, you know, they didn't even know that they would be creating great foundation work later on, you know, which I would assume is very similar to the other flow arts that are out there.
We run into problems with that all the time in the poi world because people have come up with names for tricks, but they didn't bother to define them. So, like, what constitutes a this versus a that? It gets pretty contentious at times, yes.
Yeah.
Good to know we're not the only ones who suffer from that problem.
Yes, definitely not.
So we've kind of touched upon some of the challenges that the gloving world is facing right now. What do you think is the biggest challenge that the gloving world is going through right now? And do you have any prescriptions for how it can overcome them?
I think right now it's, you know, I think one of the biggest issues is just there's a lot of certain areas of the online community are very toxic.
Yeah.
it's not very welcoming to new glovers. And I think that could eventually be something that's problematic, because if you're not creating new glovers, it's not going to be sustainable in the long run.
Yep.
You know, so I think that sometimes glovers are not really aware that, you know, that toxic environment is affecting, you know, that there are a lot of people that are looking on the outside in and thinking if they want to start something, or, you know, but then they see that and are like, well, I don't know if I really want to be a part of, you know, a community that's gonna, you know, be negative or something like that. You know, and this isn't the whole online community. There's other spaces and, you know, groups that really do have a positive environment, and there's individuals that really do, you know, work to keep it inviting, and they're constantly having conversations with people that show interest in gloving. But, you know, I think as a whole, we could do better.
Yeah. Do you mind if I... Oh, go ahead.
Make it a more positive.
Yeah. Do you mind if I dive a little deeper into that last point? What do you think are some of the more toxic elements of the culture? Like, where do you see those emerge?
I see them I think if I had to, like, really just pinpoint where I see it on each, you know, on a platform, I would say that Facebook is where it's just mostly kind of, it's become a little bit toxic at times.
Yeah.
I don't really see that with, you know, posting like on, you know, on Instagram or even on YouTube really that much anymore. You know, but there's just like a couple big groups. There's our big group, which is, it's almost close. I think there are like over 25,000 members at this point, but it's called Glover's Lounge. Mm-hmm. That's, you know, and it is a huge group for the community, and it is a great way to meet people and network, and, you know, just kind of also just, you know, connect with people. If you live in an area where there isn't a lot of glovers, you know, that you do resort to the online community, you know, and trying to make those connections, you know, if you so choose, obviously. You know, but at times there could just, you know, it's anything from, you know, people just not being sensitive to people that are, you know, posting for their first time, right, and, you know, might be a little bit vulnerable or kind of, you know, anxious to see how people might respond, you know, to other, and I've seen other females getting, you know, discouraged from just the way that people have treated them in some of those online, and felt, you know, just very insecure to post anything, because of, you know, having some type of judgment, you know,
yeah,
on them online.
Yeah. I don't know if it's true in the gloving groups, but one of the things that I see a lot in the poi groups that just drives me insane is there'll be some young woman who posts something, and, like, you know, she's generally speaking, you know, kind of on the newer side of, you know, she is one of the first things that she's posted and everything, and all the comments will be about what she's wearing instead of what she's doing. And it becomes one of those things that, you know, a whole host of guys will jump on and be like, well, why is it a bad thing that they're talking about what she's wearing and everything? It's like, because if you aren't treating this person as though what the content they're creating, if you're not treating them as though the content that they're creating is the important part of their video, then you're telling them that you're never going to see them as anything more than that. And that discourages everybody from posting. Yeah, that's, you know, and I've seen that's happened countless times in, you know, various groups online, and it's, you know, it's ridiculous that it still even happens at this point, you know. But, you know, there's been positive responses to it, you know. For example, there's a Girls Who Glove group on Facebook, which is actually all just females in the group. And that was a response to a lot of guys, and, you know, putting either, you know, derogatory or just like kind of, you know, just exactly how you said, you know, pointing out what they're wearing or how they look in their videos. And, you know, girls didn't want to post for a long time. That was like a huge problem. So me and a couple other female glovers created this group, you know, where
where females can safely post and, you know, not feel like they're going to just be attacked, you know?
Yeah.
But now it's really, you know, now it's a lot different now. It's getting better. There's at times where it does, you know, the community does have its slip ups and its moments, but, it's a lot better than it used to be. And I see, and it's really great to see females, you know, thriving now and, you know, really enjoying and not being discouraged.
Totally.
And seeing men also being supportive of that also. And, you know, that's always, that's always, you know, that's always a good thing, a good example to set for people that want to get involved, you know, and for other people to, you know, notice and see. And, you know, then I always try to remind people that there's always, you know, those silent viewers that are, you know, there's people in these forums and, you know, that don't comment or post, but like they're reading everything and, you know, watching everything that's there. Yeah. So be mindful.
You have to care as much about the 20 people that aren't saying anything as you are on the 5 people that are.
Exactly. Yes.
Cool. So the girls called Girls Who Glove?
Yes, the group is called Girls Who Glove.
Cool. Are poi spinners and other flow artists welcome there too?
As of right now, no.
Okay.
Only because we tried it for a little bit and it just it instantly backfired. So you know, and it was, you know, not so much. There's no exclusivity going on, but it's just like, you know, it was something that we just wanted to create that was just, you know, a safe space. And then most of the girls that are in there that are posts are mostly newer glovers too, you know, so it's, you know, and I hear a lot of people, you know, and I see a lot of the conversations that go on in there saying, you know, going, okay, well, I'm going to post this here. And then, you know, them get a really positive response and say, hey, you know what, because of that, I'm going to go post it in Glover's Lounge, or I'm going to go post it in, you know, another group as well. And just, you know, because they built up the courage, you know. Totally. A good place, you know, a good stepping stone.
Yeah. No judgment here. I was just curious if the recommendation was going to be for, you know, women in the poi community who are sick of poi chat to go join Girls Who Glove, or to create their own group, Girls Who Flow or Girls Who Spin Poi or what have you, to create a more hospitable environment, which of course ultimately the goal is to, you know, make the larger groups a hospitable environment. But I think that creating smaller groups like that are a good stopgap towards that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So getting back into the philosophical questions, where would you like to see gloving go in the next 5 years?
I would really love to see gloving be integrated with more, you know, I would love to see more dancers integrate gloving into their performance pieces. I follow the dance community, and, you know, I think, you know, I see a lot of things and pieces where I just think of, I imagine if they did use maybe gloves or use it for one part of the performance, and you know, how it might be something cool and different for, you know, but that's where I envision it going. Cool.
Is that where you're taking it?
That's where I hope, you know, there's certain things that I'm kind of working on in the long run, but we'll see.
Okay, excellent. I can't wait to see how that evolves. What keeps you passionate and focused on gloving right now? And has that changed since you started doing it?
So I think when I started, it really was a form of expression, you know, for me, and it still is that for me now. But, you know, now I really I want to give back, and because I've gotten so many incredible opportunities from gloving, and it's, you know, I've been able to travel the world essentially, you know, because of it, and you know, meet amazing people and go to festivals and have all these great experiences, and it's all because, you know, people chose to kind of support me and jump on board with, you know, what I was trying to do. And so, you know, I create the content and, you know, the tutorials and the videos and stuff to really just, you know, give back to people that, and, you know, supporting me over the years.
Mm-hmm. Right on. What's the biggest thing that you wish that poi spinners and hoopers and all the other folks that use, I guess I'll just call them big tools, if that makes any kind of sense in distinguishing it. What's the biggest thing you wish that they knew about the gloving world right now?
You know, I think one of the common things that I've seen a lot of, that I've seen people say about the gloving community, they're not necessarily glovers, but involved in the flow arts community, is that it's, you know, that the reason it's not a flow art is because it's easier than all the other flow arts. And I would like to say that gloving isn't easy. It's not as easy, you know, it looks like, you know, maybe it looks easily accessible because it's, you know, it's just you know, you're not using a lot of space, but, you know, I don't think that that gloving is any easier or more difficult than any of the other flow arts that are out there. So I think that's always the biggest thing that I've wanted to, you know, kind of wanted to say, and things that I've seen as well.
Word. I feel that, because long ago in the circus world, poi got a reputation for being easy, quote unquote, and because of it, we were kind of relegated to second-class citizens in the juggling and circus world for quite some time. So I feel your pain on that one, and hopefully people out there who are at home listening and watching this will take that one to heart and realize that you know, don't become that thing that has been a problem for us in the past too. Yeah. So we're nearing we're past the hour mark here, and I guess what I'm going to ask you then is, do you have kind of, let's say for the sake of argument that you had, you know, somebody who was coming up to you at an event, and, you know, they're just starting off in their gloving career and everything, and they're just like, you know, I want to be able to do what you did and everything, and they want just one piece of advice from you as to how to make that happen. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to continue to, you know, glove for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you know, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, once you reach a certain point, and if you want to, you know, I guess for me, I've wanted to start, you know, giving back, but the core root of it is really just, you know, you're keeping yourself happy and expressing yourself, and, you know, really just being true to it being a art of expression.
Mm-hmm. That is good advice. Are there any other thoughts that you want to throw out there before we draw this thing to a close? Any place that we've been thus far that you'd like to elaborate more on, or things that you'd like to cover that we didn't talk about?
You know, not really, but, you know, I'm excited to, you know, I'm excited to see where the community goes, and there are a lot of really positive and inspiring new voices that are starting to emerge in the scene, you know, and I'm excited how they will influence others, and, you know, and how it'll continue to grow on a global scale.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I can't wait to see how that evolves myself. Well, I'm going to go ahead and draw this to a close then right quick, and I just want to take a moment to thank Blitzen for joining me for the past hour and, you know, sharing all this wonderful information. We didn't know each other terribly well before we got on this call, so I really appreciate you making that leap of faith and sharing all this with me. And I want to thank all you guys out there who are either watching this on YouTube or listening to it on SoundCloud. Thank you so much for tuning in. And in another 4 weeks, I will have another awesome interview from somebody who's making waves in the flow arts community. And one last thing before we sign off, and that is to thank the friends of the channel, the people who are helping to contribute to making these videos possible on Patreon, which at this point is Dark Monk, Emazing Lights, Flow Toys, Spinballs, Ultrapoi, and I think that's it. I hope that's it, because if not, I've forgotten the name of the other one, and I'm going to be really embarrassed about that. But anyhow, thank you so much for joining me, Blitzen. Have a happy new year, yeah?
Thank you.
You're welcome.